Welcome everyone to the last of the webinar series, our winter grain webinar series. Let me get my screen up here for you. There we go. Y'all can see my screen, I hope. Welcome. My name is Katie Bishop. I am the Organic Grain Mentorship Coordinator with the Land Connection, and I'm very excited to bring these great farmers from OFARM here to talk about organic grain marketing. But before I do, I want to share just a little bit about the Land Connection. We're an organization located here in central Illinois, and we work with farmers in a lot of different ways, and these are just some of those ways. We offer farmer training programs like this. We also have field days and conferences. We help host the mechanical weed control field day here in the Midwest, and for those of you that are interested, it will be in Michigan this year. We have a farmers market in Champaign-Urbana where we work to provide access for farmers to sell their products. And along with access, we also work diligently to make sure healthy local food gets into the hands of those that need it by offering double and triple link match and all different types of programs. And then something else that we're really proud of is that we have a program, the Illinois Farm Link, where we work with landowners who want folks to farm their land. So trying to keep as much land here in the Midwest farmed by small family farmers and keep those rural economies going. So today we are going to talk about how organic grain marketing really works with my friends here from OFARM. And I'm actually going to turn it right over to Steve from OFARM to talk to you a little bit more about the work that they do.
Good evening, everybody. Steve Boyda, organic farmer from Northeast Kansas. My wife and I, we've been certified since 2015. Organic, we have roughly 300 acres of tillable acres and 450 acres of pasture. We have a cow-calf herd that is not certified organic, but it's basically treated organic. And we're farming on my grandparents' farm that we've had in the family since 1903, so it means quite a bit to us. OFARM, for those that you don't know, stands for Organic Farmers Association for Relationship Marketing, and we're a farmer-led, organic-focused umbrella cooperative. Our members are farmer-led cooperatives and allied organic organizations that believe organic farmers do better when we work together. OFARM exists to strengthen the long-term success of organic farm family operations by supporting sound organic policy, protecting supply chain integrity, expanding education around relationship marketing, and helping develop a stronger cooperative nature. In simple terms, we help organic farmers and farmer-led groups stay informed, stay connected, and build markets that value rural organic production. And Katie, thank you for hosting this event tonight.
Great. If we could have our other farmer experts introduce themselves, we can start with Will.
Hi, everyone. Will Ortman from Southeast South Dakota. Been organic producer since 2009 and grow a variety of crops. My main rotation is consists of oats, corn, soybeans, and hemp seed. Also have laying hens and we got some cattle and also so we're trying to be diverse in different areas.
And what is the crop that you raise that is my absolute favorite?
Yeah, so my wife and I operate a artisanal ice cream little creamery here on the farm, and we're selling in stores and restaurants and at festivals. So that's kind of a fun little sideline.
That's awesome. Thank you, Will. Ed.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Ed Resnichak, live in farm in northeast Kansas. We have a beef cattle, organic grain, and forage operation. My contribution to this panel, I think, is primarily from the standpoint of 30 plus years. I worked within an organic grain marketing cooperative, Central Plains Organic Farmers. Started out as a general secretary, worked as a marketer, and then worked as a general manager, and retired about 2 years ago.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ed. And Carmen.
Yes, Carmen Fernals from Western Minnesota, where it always snows sideways. But I started farming in 1972 and certified organic for the first time in 1975. And just recently, in fact, 2020, been turning the operation over to a young family neighbor who are doing the operation. And along with that, our major crops are the corn, soybeans, small grains, and we've also been marketing sunflowers and buckwheat. And I guess, like Ed, I think maybe my contribution here tonight is not that I'm actively farming, but I hope I can share some experience that I've learned over the last 50 years.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you, Carmen. Thank you, all of you. Okay, so really quick before we get started, I want to do an informal poll of our audience to kind of see who's here and what you guys are doing. So if you can give me either a thumbs up in the camera, or you can put it in the chat, which one of these applies to you, okay? So how many of you guys that are here are currently in the process of transitioning land to certified organic? What do we got? We got one, we got two. Everybody else has their camera off. Anybody else? Thank you, Russell and Michael. Okay. Freshes. Cool. If you guys can see in the chat panel, I'll let you know we've got Christine, and Junior is going to be certified in July of 2026, so very close. Wonderful. How many of you guys are already organic? Demetria. Russell's thumbs down. Okay. How many of you guys are just organic curious? You're just here to check us out. You're see what is all of this about? Demetrius, second generation organic. Very cool. Okay. And what about you're here in a support role for farmers? Kind of like me, my work, I'm a farmer, but I'm also here to help support farmers. Kay. Thank you, Kay, for your hard work. Demetria, thank you. Awesome. Okay. We got a nice little mix. We got a nice little mix all over the place. Okay, so really quick before we dive into some questions for our panel, I'm going to tell you kind of the plan for today and the structure of our webinar. So we want to allow plenty of time for conversations and for questions. So we're going to be pausing between some of our questions to allow time for 2 or 3 questions from you guys. Okay, so you can raise your hand or you can put your question in the chat, and then hopefully at the end we're aiming for some time for some general questions and answers as well. So I want to say that we have a lot of content to cover. If we don't get to your question, or maybe something pops up later that you think of, I'm going to be sharing these folks' contact information, or you can also email me. Okay, does that sound good? Okay. So we're gonna jump in. Oh, one other thing is Will, my favorite ice cream maker, Will has to kind of take off a little bit. So if you see him missing at some point, that's why, because he's got some other obligations. So just so you know, he's gonna be here for just a little bit. Okay. So the first question that I have is, and I think a lot of us are wondering about, so this webinar is specifically titled Organic Grain Marketing. So what is different for organic grain marketing? How is that different from conventional grain marketing?
Okay, I'll take that question. And all these topics we're going to cover tonight, we could spend a lot of time on. Because of time constraints, we're going to be covering them in a very summary fashion. And on how organic grain marketing differs from conventional marketing, one of the first things is that organic certification standards, processes, documentation shapes organic production and marketing. We have nothing like that on the conventional side. Organic grain and livestock markets are thin markets, according to a USDA economic study published in 2022. And thin markets are characterized by relatively few buyers and few suppliers compared to conventional markets. And so thin markets present some challenges and some opportunities. And one of the opportunities is because buyers are concerned about getting adequate supply, farmers are concerned about access to markets. It should and can encourage long-term mutually beneficial relationships between buyers and suppliers. Quality of grain plays a bigger role in organic markets compared to conventional markets. Buyers and consumers not only want authentically certified organic, but they expect higher quality as well. So quality is a bigger factor in organic than I think it often is in conventional. Markets and delivery locations for organic often are at further distances. As a result, logistics and shipping considerations take on greater importance. In organic sales, the delivery is typically at the buyer's call, and direct delivery out of the field directly to the buyer or other their processors, those direct shipments out of the field are typically uncommon. So it means that there's going to need to be some grain storage. Organic has shipping practices and documentation to ensure organic integrity. This is not the case with conventional. And sale terms with organic sales can often be negotiated, which is not very much, very often the case with conventional. Give you a price offer, you can take it or leave it. In organic, oftentimes there's negotiating room. Because of some of these differences, I think organic grain marketing requires higher levels of knowledge, management, and diligence. And that's part of the reason why we have premium prices associated with organic production.
Right. Yeah, one of the many. So it sounds like relationships and quality and logistics and documentation and negotiations, all these things play into are big differences. I think one of the things that plays into that quality too is crop rotation. So can you talk a little bit about how crop rotations fit into this idea of organic grain marketing?
In my mind, there are two main elements regarding crop rotation and organic grain marketing. One is the goal to produce high quality grain. And the second is the makeup of the crop rotation in terms of the kinds of crops grown and the volume of bushels you expect to produce will and should inform your grain storage and grain handling plans. Regarding quality, I think it's important to remember quality begins in the field. If the grain you got in your bin is of low quality, there's usually not a lot that can be done to change that. You need to come out of the field with decent quality in order to have quality that you can sell later. Crop rotation is really the main way that we can get high quality and get good production. A strong crop rotation that includes legumes, utilizes livestock manure, addresses the fertility needs and the weed control challenges are all part of achieving that quality. Additionally, selecting suitable varieties, proper seeding rates, crop care generally, and proper proper timing of field operations are also critical to getting good quality. Machinery properly maintained and adjusted and used at the right time, and are also key elements in getting good quality. And I'd say organic rewards high levels of farming knowledge and skill. So lifetime of building your knowledge and skill, I think, go a long way in long-term success of organic farming. On the grain storage and handling, on that part of the marketing, you need to think in terms of matching the bin size and number of bins to accommodate the types of crops and the quantity of crops you're going to produce. It's better to have more numerous smaller bins than just one or two large bins. Like I said, on the differences, you're not going to sell grain directly out of the field, so you need to make plans for storage. And then equip bins with aeration and electricity. It can kind of tie into crop rotation a little bit, and that those things can help you maybe harvest a little earlier, and then maintain the quality while the grain is in storage. And again, you want to come out of the bin with grain of equal quality as what went in the bin.
Great.
There's a lot more that could be said, but maybe better leave it for questions at this point.
Well, and that's exactly right, Ed. We want to make sure there's plenty of time that you guys are hearing what you came to hear too. So are there any questions so far from Ed or about those differences between conventional and organic grain marketing that he discussed, or any other ones that you want to mention? And then also those crop rotations. So that's where we're starting. I love when OFARM presented this idea. It's not about selling your grain. It starts right at the beginning, right when you're deciding what you're going to plant in those rotations. So we're going to start right there. So anybody have questions about that stuff? You can put it in the chat, or you can take yourself off mute. Well, hold on, because we're going to keep going. We're going to get into it some more. So Russell says, first year transition of 200 acres. Wants to know, what is your favorite crop rotation?
I like a rotation that includes a perennial legume like alfalfa. So the rotation I use, 7 years long, at least 3 to 4 years of alfalfa, and includes a cereal grain ahead of the legume, corn after I take out the legume, and then soybeans. And then start over again with a cereal grain and forage legumes.
And Ed, remind me again, where are you located? Because that's so dependent too on
I'm located in northeast Kansas on the southwest edge of the Corn Belt.
Okay.
34 inches of average annual rainfall in the county where I live.
And Russell is on the other side of the Midwest, all the way in northwest Ohio. So could potentially be different when we're talking about crop rotations, for sure. Any of you guys else on the panel want to share what your favorite crop rotation is?
Well, I think one thing that can impact a crop rotation, and I think it's why it's really beneficial, I always consider it part of the rotation, is some kind of a livestock operation, and preferably grazing cattle, cow, calf, beef herds, because that utilizes the legumes, especially alfalfa, instead of having to ship the alfalfa off of a farm and lose those nutrients. Plus, it helps you in your rotation because you can rotate pastures around the fields as well. So I think when we think of rotations, I think of the livestock as part of a real full rotation.
Yeah. Anybody else? Anybody else feel them?
Just real quick, on top of that, I prefer to have a diverse cover crop for 2 years instead of a cash crop. But that's only really works if you have livestock, because you can justify having feed for livestock and getting them out there. That doesn't work for everybody. It doesn't work everywhere, but that's our preferred, that we don't even worry about a cash crop for the first 2 years.
Demetria, I don't know of one specifically, but I think that's a great question. In the chat, Demetria says, are there any guides published to start out marketing organic? And I don't know, OFARM, what you guys have. I know that's something that we're kind of working on potentially too. And if Marble Seed has anything, let me get back.
I hope we can answer some of that by the time this evening is up.
There you go. Yeah. Absolutely. And if not, Demetria, I'll try and find some resources and send them out to the whole group too. So I won't leave you hanging with that question. Okay. So I'm gonna because I want to make sure we have plenty of time to hear from Will, I'm gonna move on to our next little segment here too. And Will and panel, can you talk a little bit about harvesting and what things we need to consider when we're harvesting and how that impacts marketing?
Yeah, so as a general rule, like Ed was saying, with organic farming, the details matter. I mean, they do in conventional also, but it's at a whole nother level on the organic side. And when it comes to harvest, that's certainly the case. And I would say the main goal is to get as good a clean harvest as you can without damaging your potential in terms of selling a quality product at the end. And that is going to start with your harvestor, and making sure that the little things such as the combine settings are correct, your fan speed and all of that, if you're using combine. The more foreign material and whatnot you can keep out of your tank, of course, the better you're going to be when you're marketing your crop. The other consideration is when you get to the field, make sure that your conditions are just right. One of my mistakes early on was I was anxious to get harvesting, and the ground conditions were a little bit tacky, and so then you tend to have more dirt coming into the machine. So this is the kind of thing. It's really easy to get kind of caught up in the desire to get out there and get your crop in, and so person just has to really be patient. Just general cleanliness of the machine too, and this is really particularly important if you're trying to get into a food grade market. One of the things that I really enjoy about organic farming compared to when I was conventional is that there is this whole food grade market, and it's kind of fun to explore that. That doesn't really exist in conventional in the same way, and depending on what your market is and what crop you're growing, getting into the food grade market can be difficult, particularly if your combine's kind of out of shape. That can really throw a monkey wrench into the plan. So I would say it really begins with your machine and just going over that carefully, and then making sure that it's clean, and particularly when you're switching crops. For example, if you're trying to get into a food grade market, a lot of times now these days, gluten is something they don't want to see in a test. And so if you've been growing rye or wheat or barley, you want to have machine clean real carefully before you're growing something that's non-gluten, because that can be a sticking point then in when you get to selling the crop later. So those are some of the considerations when you're looking at harvesting.
And also, I would add, also if you have like a dual, you've got organic and conventional, having to clean out the equipment in between harvesting if you're going from harvesting your conventional corn to your organic corn or soybeans or what have you. So definitely don't want to make that mistake. So when we're talking about handling, what else do we need to consider about this?
So one of the things that a lot of organic producers do is when you're going from the wagon and you're handling grain going into a bin, a lot of producers will get themselves some kind of a screen or rotating cleaner that will take out some of the weed seed and in the step, between the wagon and the bin, and that adds a little bit of time, but that is really worthwhile, because if you can get rid of some of the fines and chaff and weed seed, which are, which okay, it happens in organic, right? You get a few weeds in there. At least it does on my farm.
Yeah, mine too.
Yeah. So if you can get rid of that stuff, going into the bin, everything will work better than in the bin. And these are details that are not as big a deal if you are going to be hauling into your local elevator, on the conventional side, if that's what you're used to. These are not things that I did before I transitioned, but I do them now because it saves some headache later. The other thing is to have equipment that's in good shape, to prevent damage to the grain, particularly if you're trying to get into a food grade market where, like growing a soybean, for example, in a food grade market, they often will only pay you for whole beans, and if you have an auger that's kind of shelled out and it's making a lot of splits, that's money out of your pocket. So just having equipment that's well maintained and ready to go when you need it goes a long way also.
You say ready to go. I think that's funny because no matter how ready to go I am, it always breaks down in the field multiple times every year. So I don't know how much more ready to go we can get, and then we're running in and getting parts, and is that just farm life?
Yeah, it only breaks when you're using it, right? I mean, it's just yeah, like how that is.
Isn't it true? Ed touched on storage, but I think this is such a different piece too for organic farms. And I know a lot of my mentees that are operating on a lot smaller land don't have, the resources to get a big bin. So I think there's a lot of different storage options. Can you kind of talk about those storage needs specifically for organic grain?
So most organic grain is sold on a buyer call basis where they will let you know when they want it, and so that's very, very different than in the conventional world where you just haul to the local elevator and you call it good. So having storage is really important. It's going to open better pricing opportunities also. Typically, there's a gradual increase of value as the year goes on if you can store it. I think the best, and I'm not able to do this with my current storage setup, but I think the best setup that I've seen is farmers that buy that put up numerous small bins. One example is a fellow who actually will segregate by field. So each field gets its own storage bin. And what he's done is over the years, he has watched for small bins that are, I mean, quite often people are upgrading bins, and so the small bins are relatively cheap. It takes a little bit of time and a little bit of concrete, but you can accumulate bins so you can segregate. The nice thing about that is if you have a quality issue on a field that maybe you don't see it when you're harvesting and it's a different variety, for example, then you don't, and if you don't commingle, then you it is a risk management tool to be able to segregate different varieties or different fields. I try to do it by variety somewhat, but I don't have enough bins to do it the ideal way. And in terms of storage, like Ed mentioned, having an aeration floor is I think really, really important for just about every crop. Being able to aerate is big, particularly if you're doing small grains. And because you just often need to get the sweating process to get through that. And then if you're fortunate to get a stirrator, awfully nice to have, particularly if or a drying system. Some of those things might take time to get your hands on, but grain storage if you're willing to use smaller bins doesn't have to be super expensive.
Seneca Murley, who is with Clarkson Grain here in Central Illinois. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Clarkson Grain, but she was talking a lot too about being able to test the moisture in your bins.
Right. Yeah, there's really nice systems now where you can hang sensors in the bin that will give you a live reading of moisture. And yeah, I mean, okay, I didn't even mention moisture. Moisture is a huge, huge issue. And moisture is in the organic world, moisture is grounds for possibly getting a load rejected at a buyer's location, which is a real can be a real headache then. So moisture, yeah, definitely you want to know where you're at on moisture, and you want to check it periodically, especially if you're storing it over winter and into the next year. Critical issue.
If I can put a shameless plug, the Artisan Grain Collaborative, which I can put the link in the chat right now, is offering micro grants to folks who are looking to build a regional food shed, the grain food shed. And so we actually were able to take part and get a moisture reader, so we don't have to keep running to the elevator to check our grain, trying to figure out when the right time to harvest it is. So you can get, I think it's up to $2,500, $3,000. Don't quote me on that. Something to that effect. So I'll put that in the chat for anybody who's in the Midwest and wants some money to improve that. So
yeah, great.
Yeah, thank you.
When you go from as grain gets cold through the winter and it starts warming up in the spring, it's critical to be able to that grain may take on moisture as that season warms up. It's critical to be able to run air through that grain in order to keep it dry and in good condition.
Yeah. It does seem like that is a big piece to the quality, is after it's harvested and it's sitting in those bins.
Yeah, and just to add to that, a couple of things. Way back when we'll start talking, we were anxious to get out in the field to get that stuff harvested, but we have to make sure that the crop is mature. We'd like to get it harvested, but if it's not mature, you're going to impact the quality. big time. Test weight for sure, and drying down are going to be impacted. So make sure the grain is mature. And then I always say minimum crawl in those bins at least once every 30 days or less, just to check them out, because they can go out of condition even though you don't think they're ready to go. So those are two things that I would really emphasize as well.
One of the things I look for in variety selection are varieties that have good shatter resistance. And that way, if weather's keeping you out of the field, you're not seeing your grain shatter on the ground. And so it can, you can wait without losing a lot of crop until the conditions are right.
Anybody have any questions? We're going to pause right here now that we've been talking about harvest and storage and handling. Does anybody have any questions related to these ideas? It looks like Christine put in the chat, what is your moisture target? And can you tell us some more specifics about screens or rotating cleaners?
In the next section, I'm going to talk about grain grades a little bit. And grain grades give you moisture specs for grain that will meet different grades. I think like corn, for number 2 corn, I think the moisture is point is at 15%. And you really need to bring corn down a little drier than that for long-term storage where we live. And soybeans, I think, was 14% for number 2. I know for processing soybean meal, that's too high. Like to see it below 12. And I think wheat's 14% moisture for US number 2. And I'd like to bring it down a little lower than that too for long-term storage.
Yeah, the moisture really can change depending on the crop. Just as an example, if corn is 15 and that's an acceptable range for corn, hemp seed they want 8%. So very, very different. So the variety between crops is really significant. In terms of screens, rotating screens, I don't know, does anyone have information on that to share?
The rotary grain cleaners, typically have different size screens for different grains. Some of them are more or less difficult to change on the cleaner, and they're not built to give a food grade or seed grade cleaning. But what they typically do is take out the fines and take out some of the, if you got bigger weed seed like cocklebur or pieces of corn stalk, it'll take those things out. You get rid of a lot of the foreign material, and it'll usually help your grain grade better and store better. And one of the important things in design of rotary cleaners is that they can handle high volumes. So you don't have to slow down unloading into a bin too much.
Ed, are there some specs from grain buyers about in relation to corn about size of cob or stock that can be in the corn in relation to potential corn borer issues like that?
Well, California seemed to be the most rigid on not wanting stalks coming in on corn to keep corn borer out. And they would tolerate no chunks of stalk in a shipment of corn. It seemed like they were in recent years, not very diligent on enforcing that. But that was another reason you could, if you're shipping corn by rail to California, for instance, halfway across the country, you don't want to have a rail car of corn rejected for material they won't allow. And so you can work with a state grain inspection, have a certificate that you cleaned it, and then make sure you inspect the load, that you don't have stalks on the top of the load. And you could pretty much assure that your corn would be accepted.
Great. I just want to call attention to some stuff in the chat here really quick and say Demetria had asked if she wants to do nutrient density testing, and is the Bionutrient Good Institute the only one trying to do these tests? And thank you, Steve, for mentioning that the Regenerative Organic Alliance is now doing that on, what did you say, almost 70 or more types of organic production. So hopefully that answers your question, Demetria. But then she also mentions that she uses a Farm King rotary cleaner. It cleans 120 pounds wheat a minute. And there's 2 other cleaners that they use to get the grain to food grade. It's like used as a scalper. Like Ed said, it gets rid of large and fine foreign material. And I just want to read that for the recording. And for any of you guys who might not be on chat, there's some other options there that are being shared.
If I could jump in for a second. Before I just started with Central Plains, I worked procurement for an organic chicken feed manufacturer. So I just wanted to point out, a lot of times with smaller companies that buy organic, they set their own specifications. Like the company I just worked for, they had 2% max FM. The different commodities they used had different moisture requirements. So a lot of times it's customer driven on what quality they want. And so that's just something I wanted to bring up. Like especially the company I worked for had no way of cleaning the grain. So that's why they had that tight spec for max FM. So
thank you for sharing that. Okay. So we're going to actually move on to specs. So let's dig into that a little bit more. You know, when it comes to testing and those specs, what is required for organic grain marketing in ways that it isn't for conventional grain?
Well, what's required will usually vary among buyers, but there's things you want to do on your own, regardless of requirements. And the first thing is, it's important to know the quality of your grain in order to market it as effectively as you can. You know, in this sense, you can think in terms of information as power. You know, you want to know what you've got, and if it's not as good as you like, that's still important to know in how you can most effectively market it. And learn about USDA grain grades in order to learn basic grain grade factors and standards. And you can go online and probably get information on US grain grades and standards. There may be other factors, as others have already mentioned, besides just the grain grades. And the main things are moisture, foreign material, test weight, but there are all the other things: damaged kernels, off odors, insect damage. The vomit toxins can be at play. So there's other factors as well. Identify available grain testing labs in your area and what resources are available. Most states have a state grain inspection lab that is operated as a state agency or as a contract provider. In Central Plains Organic Farmers, we did most of our testings through Kansas Grain Inspection and had an ongoing long-term relationship with staff there, could always go there for questions and so forth. So it's good to have those kind of relationships. It's critical to collect representative samples. And if you think about it, you might be submitting a 2-pound sample for a test, and it's supposed to represent maybe 10,000 bushels of grain. And so getting a representative sample is easier said than done. Probably the most effective way is what we recommended to our members was pull a sample out of each load as you're going into the bin. And collecting 5 gallons of sample is not too much. You'll need sample not only for testing, but particularly food grade sales. Buyers are going to want to see a sample. They may want to, like a bakery may want to have enough to test, to bake a loaf and see how it does. So getting plenty of sample is important. The grain lab will give you the instructions for a proper sample submission. What quantity, how to submit it, and they'll ask you what parameters you want tests for. Others have already referred to monitoring grain and storage. Important. If grain condition changes, you may want to resample and retest. And you want to know accurately the quality of the grain that you're loading on a truck and shipping out. And it is the key to avoiding rejected loads. And you also want to keep for yourself a sample of what you ship in case there's a dispute over quality. You've got a sample that you pulled out of that load, and you know that it represents what you shipped. So it can be a valuable tool in negotiating disputes over quality.
So one of the things I hear the most from folks who are considering organic or not considering organic is this idea that the paperwork is too cumbersome. The record keeping is too cumbersome. And my response to that is always like, it just makes you a better business owner and a better farmer by keeping records. But I'm curious for you and for the panel here, what kind of paperwork do you feel like is needed and different for organic grain marketing than for conventional grain marketing?
Well, okay, the documents that come into play are fairly extensive, but I think the real challenge with documents is the first year of certification. Once you get that first year behind you, it becomes a lot easier, and it soon becomes habit. But the documents that'll come into play in sales and shipments are, of course, the organic certificate. You've got lab testing reports. For your information, and if you're marketing through a cooperative, you're going to want to make sure your marketer's got a copy of that lab report. May well want to share that with the buyer as well. Negotiating sales will involve a sales contract, so you want to, read the contract and know what you're committed to. That contract will also usually give you the specifications for quality. And when you're talking to a buyer, or if your marketer's talking to a buyer, they're going to want to discuss, okay, anything we really need to know in more detail about the specifications. We always in the co-op like to use a shipping confirmation, a document we call a shipping confirmation. The marketer would usually issue that. It went to the buyer, it went to the trucker, it went to the destination of the product, it went to the farmer, had contact information, email, phone number, so that everybody could reach each other. There's a lot of things that can delay shipping or complicate shipping. Being able to reach each other and give everybody a heads up is a way to make it work as smooth as possible. You'll want to inspect a container or truck and obtain a clean container or truck affidavit. And even if the truck shows up with a clean truck affidavit, take a look in the truck, see for yourself what's in there. And I always told members, the buyer may be taking other loads in. There may be a problem load. You want to be able to show that it's not yours that was the problem. And if you're sitting on a witness stand, attorney asks you, did you really inspect that truck? You want to be able to say yes. Arrange to have a scale ticket, send a copy with the load, keep a copy for yourself. You'll need to have available and install container seals. They're little metal or plastic zip tie top seals that have a number on them. They'll go on your bill of lading, and it ensures that the container wasn't opened and something removed or added to it. Send a bill of lading with the shipment and keep a copy for your own records. There's a certification information on that, addresses for destination, for billing, and so forth. And once the shipment has been accepted, submit the invoice promptly, because that usually triggers the countdown of days on receiving payment.
And man, have a good folder system for keeping your check stubs and your tickets and all of that kind of stuff. That's my job, by the way, on the farm. I don't know if you know that, but right, you can't see it, but I have a folder system where I keep all of the paperwork together, because when it comes time for certification, you got to have all of it. So, okay,
You know,
go ahead, Carmen. Yeah.
one thing that I really learned quite a few years back is to purchase a good quality scanner.
Mm.
And every single document relating to certification is scanned into the computer, so that when the inspector shows up, I'm not digging through piles of paper to find something that he or she is looking for. I've got it on the computer. I can pull it up, and there it is. And if they want a copy, I can run a print of it. So a terrific investment is a scanner, and of course your cell phone, taking pictures of lots of things. Those two things have really helped me over the years.
Yeah. Yep. And I think, I'll be sending out the links to all of our other videos in the webinar series, but last week or the week before, we were talking to a panel of farmers, and they echo that, Carmen, is if I can take a picture of myself in the tractor, it has a time stamp and a date stamp, like I can document everything that way. So it doesn't have to be complicated. I don't know why everybody seems to think it's so hard, but I don't think people like to follow rules, or maybe that's just it's just me. All right.
Well, I think for people new to organic marketing, those first times the truck shows up to load out grain is pretty stressful.
Well, yeah, because you want to get paid that money,
That's right.
like that's
right.
You put all that money
Knowing
in.
the quality before the truck shows up is good. Test run the auger, know that it's going to work. And a lot of this documentation you can prepare ahead of when the truck arrives.
Yeah.
And so when the truck arrives, you need to get the weights, get the scale ticket, finish the bill of lading, send the truck on his way, staple your documents together or scan them like Carmen referred to.
Yeah. Give them to your wife to hold on to, right? If you got a wife, or your husband, who won't be. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit more about that trucking and the selling, and the grain is in the bin. Now what are we doing? You've done the hard part. You grew a good quality crop. You got it harvested in time. It's in the bin. Now what?
Well, when I think about organic sales, the starting point's pretty simple. But before you can sell it well, you have to know exactly what you have. And we've kind of commented on that. In organic, you're not only just selling bushels, you're selling a product with specific quality traits, specific end use, and usually a premium is attached to that. So before you get too far into what you're going to price it at, you need to know what the moisture is, the test weight, protein when that matters, cleanliness, foreign matter, and whether there's a contamination concern. That can be the difference between a food grade opportunity and a feed grade market, and whether a load gets rejected or discounted. And be very, very cautious on forward contracting anything in food grade markets, because you can grow the best wheat one year and it meets everything. The next year, your proteins may be off by 2 or 3%, and that'll kick you out. So just be very cautious, especially when it comes to forward contracting food grade markets. I really see that there's basically 3 ways that farmers can market their organic grain. I've done it all 3 ways. I prefer the first one, but all can work if given the opportunity. One's through a farmer-led cooperative, such as Central Plains Organic Farmers or NF Organics. One is to the direct end user. And the third is through an organic trader. All three can work, but they each have something that's a little different. A cooperative can help with market intelligence, buyer relationships, logistics, screening buyers, including credit checks, and to reduce the risk of non-payment. Direct marketing can sometimes return more value, but it also involves a lot more work, consistency, paperwork, and communication that the farmer is trying to do to work with the end user all on their own. Traders can move a lot of grain and solve problems, but you also need to know exactly who's buying it, what the specs are, and how the discounts, rejections, and payment terms are handled. The other point I'd like to make is that organic sales usually work best when they start early. Organic marketing is not something that you wait, you open the grain door and start loading onto a truck because someone's there to pick it up. The bottom line is know your grain, know your market, and know who your buyer is.
Right. And I mean, as an example, there's been times where we've had a load rejected, and that freight's on us. The freight there, the trucking there, and the trucking back is definitely on us. So you don't want to make, that's an expensive mistake to make once it's already left the bin. Right.
And another thing too, know how they're pricing it. Is it picked up at the farm or is it delivered? Because someone can call you up and say, "Hey, I've got corn, 10.50. Are you interested?" And then you say yes, and then you get the paycheck, and it was actually $7 picked up at the farm. So make sure how that's priced. That can make a big difference, especially with fuel and how far it may have to go to the end user.
Yeah. Yeah, and do the math. It might be cheaper for them to come pick it up than for you to ship it, but you don't know that if you aren't doing the calculations. Just talking about shipping, is there anything else you want to add in that regard?
On shipping, all these are important, but and this is where the organic premium can be protected or it can be lost in a hurry, is on the shipping part. And Ed and others have mentioned this. Organic grain has to arrive with its integrity intact. That means no commingling with conventional grain, no contact with prohibited substance, a clear record trail from where the grain started to where it ended up. Under USDA's strengthened organic enforcement rule, traceability is the main focus, and this was required to be in full compliance back in March of 2024. So from a farmer's standpoint, shipping organic grain means paying attention to details. The truck or the trailer needs to be clean and fit for the load. The paperwork needs to match the grain. USDA guidance points to things like truck affidavits for cleanliness, bills of lading, lot numbers, truck trailer identification, wash tags, seal records, and other audit trail documents. I'd also like to include the organic certificate and any other documentation needed to verify the organic status of the grain. In other words, you just can't say, "Oh, this load's organic." You need to have the records that support it, and it needs to be followed with that shipping so it can be traced. The other part of shipping is understanding the risk. The hauler needs to understand that they're not just hauling grain. The hauler is they are hauling a grain load with added value and added liability. So the producers, we need to ask them, do they have the insurance that'll cover other things other than just simply it was a load of wheat? Do they have the insurance that's going to cover that organic premium that's on there if something goes wrong? So for shipping in organic grain, the premium is protected by details, and details need to travel with that load.
That's really interesting too. I mean, we've had, situations where the trucker comes and we have to get that clean ticket, and they say that they don't have to do that. And we're like, "No, you really do. You have to do that." So you almost have to be an advocate for yourself you have to be an advocate for your farm during the shipping process, because sometimes those truckers or those haulers aren't familiar with hauling organic grain, and they don't realize those rules, or even food grade. Yeah.
I'm not saying truckers are not trustworthy, but if the truck requires a seal at the end user, watch him put those seals on there. Just don't hand him the seals and trust that he's going to put it on there. That happened to one of our members here recently, and thank goodness that the end user they looked at everything else and said, "Okay, this one time but that could have been a very expensive load because the farmer trusted that the trucker was going to put those on there. And same with cleaning it out. Climb up there every single time, like Ed had mentioned. And I tell the truckers, not that I don't believe you, I just want to see it for myself because I've signed a form that says it was clean.
Yeah, and it's my livelihood. It's my livelihood. Um, so we all do this because we love farming, mostly because we love equipment and we like to play with big tractors. But I think a lot of us also do this because we want to get paid. This is our livelihood. It's how we pay our bills. It's how we feed our families. So, any tips on getting that check?
Well, that's probably the most important part of it all is when payday comes. And a strong organic price does not mean much if the buyer can't or won't pay. So for me, payment is not something I think about after the grain is delivered. It's something that begins at the point of sale before the grain even leaves our farm. I want to know exactly who's buying it, when the payment's due, when the title transfers, and what the written contract says, because relationships matter, but so does discipline and making sure that you've actually done your research or have had somebody else that you trust, like a cooperative, do that research for you to make sure that that buyer is going to get you paid. Uh, because like you said, one load of soybeans back when it was, I mean, it's a lot now, but back when it was $36 a bushel, there's 36,000 in one shipment that you may lose. And I don't care how big you are, $36,000 lost is a big deal to about any producer. And I'd strongly encourage producers to use written contracts and read it closely. Just don't assume somebody sends you a contract on email. Look at it, review it. If you're not used to it, ask somebody to review it that is used to seeing those contracts. The contract needs to spell out the specs, the discount, schedule, delivery terms, who determines grade, and when the payment is due. One place farmers can get in trouble is delayed pricing or deferred payment. For example, here in Kansas, those contracts, it's considered voluntary extension of credit by the seller if you want to extend that into the following year and don't take payment correctly. So you're not protected by the typical short bonds or letters of credit in the ordinary way. So that's something that varies state to state, but just don't assume you want deferred payment that you're still covered because some states that's not. So the bottom line on payment is simple: know your buyer, know your contract, and know when the money is due. In organic grain, we work very, very hard to earn that premium, and we need to protect it all the way down to when you get the final payment.
Yeah, it's got me thinking about the bankruptcy clawback problems that grain farmers have been in. That's probably going to get in a little too deep to the time that we have, but that's also something to be considering. I know that there's farmers out there that really got burned on these fly-by-night companies that aren't legitimate, and so it just goes to show, how important it is to have friends with you. Talk to your fellow farmers or your cooperative members, and don't go at it alone if you don't have to. So
And
yeah.
one other real quick, make sure you know when that delivery date is because you may get a decent price, but if you read through it, they make the determination when it's delivered, and you don't want to be holding something on for, a year or maybe more. So make sure you know when that delivery date, and that may be grounds for getting out of something also, but just don't assume they're going to pick it up as soon as they sign the contract.
Yeah. Yeah.
Contract should set out the delivery period. You might negotiate some variations, but when the final load is supposed to be delivered, you want to pressure that buyer to take it. Now, if they want to send you a payment ahead of delivery for you to hold it longer, that's another matter. But
Yeah. So Michael Underwood in the chat says, do any of you have your own trucks?
I've got a straight truck that we use to haul from farm to farm, but we don't use it to deliver to the end point. For that, we let for us it's the cooperative, or if we sell it through a broker, they make arrangements for the trucking. That's one less piece of equipment you have to maintain that's actually used very little.
On
I
our
find a lot of.
operation,
Go ahead, Carmen.
if we've got a delivery within 50 to 75 miles, we'll use our straight truck which works out pretty good because we use that same piece of equipment for hauling the grain out of the fields.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, a lot of the folks I know that have their own trucks are also running for other people just to pay for the note on the truck. They can't. It doesn't work just for their farm. They have to make it a side hustle too. But okay. Does anybody else have any questions? Dimitri, I saw yours in the chat. I want to come back to it because I think it's a really great question. I don't know if anybody even in the audience has an answer for this, but how do I market the opposite of food grade, the lowest quality stuff, right? How developed is the organic poultry market? And otherwise, I'm thinking of making my own compost business with screenings as my carbon source.
The one option, for poor quality grain or for markets that are really weak, there's a conventional market you can go to. If it's not a specialty grain, if you're looking at specialty grains, one of the questions you might want to answer, what's plan B? If you don't get the quality or you don't get the buyer, what are you going to do with it? Having livestock is a good way to use screenings, grain that may not be of marketable quality, or knowing somebody who's got livestock. Will's chickens give him, more options on grain usage, screenings, or what have you. So you take the time to give thought to some of those questions as to what you might do if you encounter such, situation where you can't get it sold for whatever reason.
I love the idea of value adding that to livestock. Yeah. No waste, right? Okay. Anybody else have any questions so far? Do I have a hand up? I feel like I have a hand up somewhere. Maybe I don't. Okay. Great. Well, we're gonna talk a little bit more about. Oh, it's my hand that's up. Why is my hand up? Clicking that mouse too much. Okay. Carmen, can you talk a little bit about cooperative grain marketing? Because it feels like there's some risk involved in growing and marketing, really in marketing organic grain. If I were just getting into grain marketing and I'm listening to you guys talk, I might be like, man, I need a mentor, which, shameless plug for my mentorship program. Yes, you probably do need a mentor if you're just now getting into organic grain, but it does seem like there's some learning curves here. So would you talk a little bit about cooperative grain marketing and all the reasons why that could be valuable?
In one sentence, everything you heard now is why it's valuable. That's as simple as I can state it. So I'm probably not going to tell you anything new because everything you've been hearing tonight is the information that's at your fingertips when you use a marketer from a cooperative. And we know this because all of the participants tonight learned much of this through cooperative marketing, through working with their marketers and working in the market. And on a personal basis, out of the 40 plus years of organic farming that I was in, I depended solely, I shouldn't say solely, but primarily on a marketer for 30 of those 40 plus years, because that's as soon as there was a marketer available for me. And over the years, I can say that it has made all the difference. But in summary, I was trying to answer this question, and so I wanted to write it down, and I would like to read to you what my answer to this would be, and I'll try and be as articulate as I can on it. So we say, because of the most structured and unique process involved in organic grain marketing, moving organic grain into the market is significantly and sometimes more challenging than what farmers generally think of or utilize as a farm grain marketing co-op, such as the local grain elevator, or in many regions across the Midwest, multi-county or even multi-state co-ops. These conventional grain co-ops buy and as a result take ownership of the grain that they buy and then store it for sale at a later date. These co-ops may from time to time share general marketing information as well. What most of these co-ops do not offer, however, are personalized one-on-one marketing consultations based on the needs of the individual producer. On the other hand, the success of the conventional co-op, however, is primarily dependent on transaction margins. So purchasing grain from the co-op members at a wholesale price, offering agronomic consulting, and selling chemicals and fertilizers, including applications of these products to its members at retail levels, becomes the main operating principle of the conventional co-op. This mode of operation and business can, in many instances, mean profitability for that co-op at the expense of the farmer. On the other hand, the cooperative model employed quite effectively in organic grain marketing is structured to fit the uniqueness of organic grain marketing itself. An organic cooperative's number one purpose and reason for existence is to assist its members in negotiating market prices through sales contracts, which include price, quantities, quality, delivery periods, and payment terms, full stop. The organic cooperative, through its marketers and office staff, arranges logistics for moving grain off the farm and into the market, most often at a significant distance from the farm. So additionally, because many sales transactions are more long distant, an organic cooperative makes certain all paperwork is completed correctly and submitted in a timely manner, and assures timely payments to the producer. A sale is not finished without the member's explicit authorization. So consequently, the farmer does not relinquish control of the grain until the transaction is finalized and the grain is delivered and meets the buyer's contract specifications. Organic cooperative marketers, the organic farmer's voice in the market, are hired and evaluated based on their ability to create and carry out a meaningful and productive marketing relationship with their farmer clients and on how well they meet and fulfill the expectations of their clients. The profitability of an organic grain cooperative is almost secondary, and the cooperative is considered successful to the degree that it can meet its operating expenses, including personal salaries. In many instances, there is minimal brick and mortar in any form beyond an office and mailing address. So the primary purpose, therefore, becomes that of returning as much money as possible generated in the marketplace back to the farmer member through its negotiated transactions with would-be buyers. So in the end, the relationship between the cooperative and the farmer becomes the foundation for a successful organic marketing cooperative and a fulfilling experience for the organic grain producer. This relationship is structurally unique in several significant ways. In most cases, it is a contractual marketing and bargaining unit, which includes an agent called a marketer, hired by the cooperative, whose primary responsibility, again, is representing the farmer in the market arena. There is generally a governing board, usually made up of organic farmers, to oversee and manage the marketers and other office personnel, as well as state and federal marketing regulations. And so what I've tried to summarize there is exactly how many of the questions and issues that were brought up this evening are really the assistance that an organic cooperative marketing program can provide. And so finally, in summary, organic grain marketing is as different from conventional grain marketing as organic grain production is different from conventional grain production. The nature of sales, quality considerations, required paperwork, shipping distances and requirements, available buyers, and more of all that come into play. Just as with organic production, knowledge and skill in marketing are many times the difference in successful sales and viable long-term organic grain farming. Successful marketing also informs successful production. And furthermore, and as an added safety net, marketing organic grain cooperatively can significantly enhance the production and marketing capacities of cooperating organic farmers.
We have a question. It was going to be my question to you, Carmen. So I'm just going to share it. How do you go about finding a grain cooperative or farmer cooperative in your area? I mean, Michael is stating, like, especially in Southern Kentucky, but I would also say even in Central Illinois, we had a grain cooperative in Central Illinois, and it is no longer here. And I'm also, we have some time for questions, so I don't want to manipulate this conversation, but longevity of cooperatives also makes me wonder, how do we work with the succession to make sure that our cooperative doesn't stop right after, after it's built or after it starts? How do we keep generations and generations engaged in the cooperative so that it keeps going? So I want you to answer, all of you guys, to answer Michael's question and my question. How do we go about finding these cooperatives? But then my sub question to that is, how do we maintain the longevity of a cooperative too?
My quick answer is build your own cooperative. And if you can't do that, I would get in touch with somebody in OFARM and ask them where there are cooperatives out there that would work for them in their areas. That would be my real quick answer there.
Okay. Well, I'm going to put Leon, you're welcome. I'm going to put Leon's email in the chat from OFARM. Although I love the idea of starting your own cooperative, because I think that, honestly, you've got lots of different types of organic growers out there. We've got lots of different types that could benefit from joining forces and building that cooperative. And maybe it's a regional thing, or maybe it's a type of farming or type of crops grown, or maybe it's a bunch of really cool women farmers that want to get together and start a grain marketing cooperative. Who knows what it is, but there's a lot of options there.
Let me just a quick sidebar on that. Once you form those cooperatives, then those cooperatives can market cooperatively and enhance the market even that much more.
Yeah.
I'll take a shot at your question. Paying for how do co-ops manage financial in Central Plains organic farmers? The co-op assesses what we call a market service fee. It's a margin, and the way that's constructed is marketers will work with the member farmers on farm gate price, what the farmers will get paid. The co-op adds its margin to that price. And in Central Plains Organic Farmers case, the co-op usually covers the shipping at the front end. Add that shipping, and then that's the price offered, negotiated with the buyer. And then when the payment comes, co-op will pay for the trucking, deduct its market service fee, and then pay the farm gate price to the farmer. So it's different, quite different than nonprofits that depend on grants. The funding for the co-op actually comes through the production and the marketing. Now, how do we make co-ops last? Besides just paying for the ongoing operating expense, cooperatives need to build a financial reserve. So when the market's weak, you've encountered a drought and your members have low production, that you've got the means to carry your way through difficult times. Co-op can also, in real difficult times, if it has the loyalty, the support, and the commitment of its members, it can go back to members to provide additional financial support to carry the co-op through a difficult time. The literature on co-ops as to why they most often fail, there's two primary reasons cited usually. One is they make a large sale for which they don't get paid, and they're not able to continue financially. That's one. And the second reason is they fail to do adequate member education in order to maintain strong member loyalty and just the instinctual understanding of cooperative values.
Which sounds about right for any group, right? Have the financial strength to persevere and make sure there's value for your members. Yeah, it makes good sense. All right, we've got some time for some questions, and I would like to also offer something to you guys, but I want to make sure there's plenty of time for folks to ask questions. So does anybody have, why does it keep raising my hand? Does anybody have any questions about anything we talked about or anything that we didn't talk about that you want to share with these folks?
I don't have a question, but I think one of the tremendous benefits of cooperative marketing is minimizing risk management. And I base that on everything we've heard tonight from all of these growers: how to harvest, how to store, how to truck, how to take samples, how to do this, how to do that. And so working together like that really minimizes the risk management of organic marketing.
Yeah. Well, you really inspired me, because I'm thinking like from a specialty crop perspective too, which is what my background is just the value of having I wish that would have been something. We did it in a lot of informal ways, but there was a lot of capacity and a lot of space for us to work together in a formal setting that could have, I think, helped a lot of us still continue to grow specialty crops profitably now.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the experiences that I've had with us being a fairly smaller size farm with about 300 acres is by being a member of the cooperative. It allowed me to aggregate my production with other production, and made it a possibility for to participate in a larger contract that paid more, that as a smaller farmer I would not have been able to participate, because there's a lot of buyers out there. They don't want to go to 15, 20, or 100 different farmers. They want to make one or two calls, and then they have that, and they're willing to pay extra for that. And I've been able to participate in that more by being a member of a co-op than I could have any time trying to sell it on my own. And that's something that sometimes is overlooked, and that can add up. It was almost $1 a bushel on corn by being able to participate with that group of producers versus just going it alone myself.
Yeah. And I don't think that we have time to address it now, but I'm going to ask you guys to send me some resources on starting a cooperative. So if that is something that some of these folks are interested in doing, how do you go about starting that? So again, we don't really have time to get into it today, but that might be something I can share out with the group that could be really helpful for those that are considering it. We do have a question from Junior in the chat. Do any of you see much demand for ROC organic crops I don't know that acronym. I'm sorry, Junior. Maybe I do it. I'm not understanding it. But is it worth the additional certification? Is that Real Organic? Oh, are we talking about Real Organic certification?
Regenerative organic.
Oh, regenerative. Oh, that's right. I'm sorry, Junior. There's so many acronyms. I forgot. Yes. What are we? Does anybody want to talk about that?
We've been rock certified for 1 year. Is the demand there? Not yet. We're hopeful that it will continue to grow. It's something that we're willing to participate in a little bit longer. Ideally, there would be just one label, NOP USDA organic. But again, we don't live in a world where everything works out. And so we'll continue to be rock certified for the next couple years for sure. And hopefully between now and then, it'll pick up.
And I just might add to that Steve and myself and two other members of OFARM have been talking to the leadership in ROC and really trying to enlighten them on the challenges of ROC certification and things of that nature. So there's another benefit, you might say, of cooperative marketing. Here you've got members of this cooperative communicating directly to the leadership of, in this case, ROC, to become much more clarifying on what the demands are, what the markets are, what the specs are, and how we can together move forward.
Yeah. And I think it's still almost like wait and see on regenerative organic too, in terms of what buyers are looking for. I know we were talking with Kelsey from Clarkson Grain at the Organic Grain Conference in Champaign a couple weeks ago, and she was saying that a lot of the food grade buyers like Frito-Lay or Pepsi, that is not something that's on their radar. They're looking for the cheapest organic grain they can get, even if it's not necessarily really organic, talking about integrity issues or not USA grown. So hopefully that's some education piece that can continue.
And just one quick other thing, and one thing we've said over and over, good marketing is information.
Yeah.
End of story.
Yeah. And I'd also add, I think there's probably some relationship pieces to that too, Carmen. There's a lot of farmers out there who don't want to take the time to build those relationships with the buyers, whereas when you're working with a cooperative, that you don't necessarily have to be the one on the phone trying to sell the grain or be the bad guy or what have you. So
on the relationship side, the cooperative is in a better position to build multiple long-term relationships compared to what an individual farmer can do. Steve made a reference, I think, to you may not always have the quality you want or that's needed for a contract. And if you're building a long-term relationship with somebody, you need to be reliable. And by working together, where individual farmers may not have the quality each and every year, some among the group will have the quality that's needed. And so you are a more reliable partner for the buyer. And, it takes time and effort to maintain a strong long-term relationship. Co-op's in a better position to do it with multiple buyers than what we can as individuals.
The R in OFARM is relationship.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you guys, we are at 7:30. I want to thank you so much, Carmen and Steve and Ed and Will, who had to leave us, and Leon, who is not on camera, but he has helped to organize this together. I really appreciate your generosity and sharing your knowledge. You guys together have so much to offer, and I wish that we had more time. I feel like this could be a year's worth of conversations. We could have it, every Tuesday night, get on Zoom and chat about grain farming. That would be probably a little too much, but it'd be a good time. It'd be a great time. So thank you for that. And we can continue this conversation, you guys. To my participants, thank you for showing up, and I will be sharing these guys' contact information. This is being recorded. I will send the links out to you. Give me a couple days to get that all together. I will say, ooh, do you see this amazing lightning that is showing up here in Central Illinois. Yes, now let it rain, let it rain. I'll be sending out an assessment or just a link for you guys. It's 3 questions. I just need you, if you can, please, to respond to that so that we can keep doing better work, getting better and better and better. On behalf of the Land Connection, thank you all for showing up, and I hope you have a great planting season ahead.